All right, so hello everybody. Welcome back to For the North. I am PJ. I'm here in Wisconsin.
Chris over here in Minnesota.
Well, hey there, everybody. So thanks again for tuning in. We have been doing a small little series. I wouldn't even call it a mini series, but this is a stretch of episodes where we're going to kind of look at the teams in the NFC North and go over kind of 3 to 4 keys or 3 to 4 things that we think are going to make or break the season for these teams. Tonight we're talking about the Packers and the Vikings. Obviously, I am the resident Packers expert, and Chris is going to be the resident expert on the Vikings. So with that, I am going to start with the Packers tonight, and we're just going to dive right in. And start with my number one thing that's going to make or break the season for the Packers. That starting point is Matt LaFleur, okay? Specifically talking about the consistency that we're going to get out of Matt LaFleur, okay? In the offseason, he was extended. He signed a multi-year extension after a somewhat lackluster performance. There was a lot of noise in the offseason after a playoff loss, an embarrassing playoff loss to the Bears, where the fan base and kind of everybody in the organization was questioning whether or not Matt LaFleur was the right choice to lead this team. Now, if you look at it from a pure statistics standpoint, I do believe that the multi-year extension is warranted for Matt LaFleur because of the performance that we've seen from 2019 all the way through 2025. Okay, he has a phenomenal 76-40 record. He's gone, to the playoffs 6 out of 7 years. When they had Aaron Rodgers under center 2019 through 2021, they were division champs those 3 years in a row, and they also went to 2 NFC championships in that stretch. Again, as I said, there's been this kind of consistent success from Matt LaFleur. The playoff performances is where you kind of give him a knock because he has not managed to get over that hump, has not won the big game and got to a Super Bowl when he had Aaron Rodgers in that 2019 through 2021 stretch. And then when Aaron Rodgers departs, they made a surprise divisional round appearance in the first year of Jordan Love as a starter. They went to the wild card the next 2 years, but ultimately lost to the Eagles, and they lost last year to the Bears. Again, as I said, an embarrassing format. But to dive into this, to really dissect it, what derailed the Packers season this past year was a lack of consistency from Matt LaFleur, and I'm putting that on Matt LaFleur because he is the one steering the ship. He is the one that should take the blame, and he is the one that hires the coordinators and makes sure that all of the players and all of the assistants, the coordinators, are kind of on the same page in terms of this. Last year we saw really ultimately bad losses to the Cleveland Browns. They lost to the Carolina Panthers, the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost to the Broncos, the Bears, the Ravens, the Vikings at the end of the season, which we both know was an inconsequential game at that point, but still a loss. And then there's the really embarrassing playoff loss. When you add up the grand total of all of those losses, and then the other one that I kind of count as a loss a little bit too is the Dallas Cowboys loss. When you add all of it up, what I did not see throughout the year was a consistent 4-quarter performance from Matt LaFleur, okay? So you would have 1 week where the offense was clicking and the defense was doing poorly, and then you would have another week where the defense was doing good and the offense was not doing well. But in all of the losses, a common denominator, something that you can point your finger at and say this was not going well, was the coaching decisions that you got from Matt LaFleur. Okay, you would have a first half that was called really well, and then all of a sudden he would abandon the run game and go exclusively to passes and try to make these explosive plays happen, or he would abandon good play calls for, flashy kind of jet sweeps or plays that resulted in, had negative results in the end of it. I mean, we saw it against the Cleveland Browns when they pretty much had the game won. They inexplicably drop back to pass on a 3rd-and-1 situation. Interception, game tied, ultimately goes to overtime and they lose. You then lose to the Carolina Panthers at home, really embarrassing fashion. The play calling throughout that was disjointed. Against the Eagles, they never got it. And then, the Denver Broncos was another story of one good half, one terrible half. Same thing with the Chicago Bears and the Baltimore Ravens loss, and you can ultimately argue that same thing for the game against Minnesota at the end of the year where they never really had it together. And then you get into the playoffs and the complete meltdown in the fourth quarter from a play calling standpoint in terms of what the offense was doing, what the defense was doing. But ultimately, I put it on Matt LaFleur in those losses. It's hard for me, as I said, I'm frustrated as a fan with this lack of consistency from Matt LaFleur, and had strong feelings both way about the extension. As I said again, I believe it's deserved, but I need to see from Matt LaFleur, okay, some things that are really going to make this next year go well. I think you need to eliminate the boneheaded mistakes. I think he needs to be less emotional in his play calling throughout the game. Okay, stay within himself, call a good game, call a smart game, and then the thing that I really want to eliminate, or I want to add to the repertoire of things that Matt LaFleur has in his bag, is taking more accountability. Because I'm sick of the phrase, it's hard to win in the NFL. Or, we just, it was a tough one. We got out-coached. I'm sick and tired of Matt LaFleur in big situations getting out-coached. So this, to me, if we're going to be successful, first key, we need Matt LaFleur to do really well, to go ahead and break this curse of being in the 7 seed. You need to win your division. And you need to make in my opinion, you need to make a deep playoff push if you're Matt LaFleur. Get everything on track to go ahead and justify that multi-year extension. So that's number one. I'm going to pause real quick. I don't know if you have anything to add, Chris, but if not, I'm going to jump into number 2 here.
No, I think you said it great. I think one thing Matt LaFleur likes to do too is he likes to blame the refs for a lot of things. Like some calls are going to go your way, they're not going to go your way. There's going to be some boneheaded calls. It's just part of the game. At the end of the day, it's part of the game because you can blame the refs all you want, but at the end of the day, if you don't play better than the other team, you're not going to win. Mm-hmm. The cards could be stacked against you, but I don't know. There have been some play calls that have been dumb, and I experienced it as a Vikings fan, right? I could sit here and still whine about the 2009, NFC Championship game and say, oh, the refs really, had us beat. But at the same time, the Vikings did not play well towards the end of the game. Adrian Peterson fumbled. Brett Favre wanted to do what Brett Favre, does.
Yep.
And we simply put, even with the cards stacked against us, we still could have won that game.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's how I feel. That's how I feel about Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, I think that falls a lot under that taking accountability piece, right? Like, as the head coach of an organization, you are the person that is making the hiring and firing decisions at a very, high level. You are building your offensive staff, your defensive staff, you're making roster decisions, and you are taking grown men and hopefully coaching them into situations where they are going to win and succeed and ultimately if you do it well enough, you win a championship. And I just don't think I really would like to see some maturity and some accountability come from Matt LaFleur this year to really have him grow and develop as a coach in going into it will be his 8th year now. This will be his 8th year as a coach. So I think we should be beyond the first, a new head coach learning curve here. Like if he's a successful coach, he needs to grow this part of his game, in my opinion. So that's my 2 cents about Matt LaFleur. Moving into number 2. I think a big factor in what hampered the Packers season last year, if you look at it, even if you're not a fan of the Packers, even if you're a casual football fan, you could see that the injuries decimated Green Bay. On the defensive side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball, they got hit really hard along the offensive line. They got hit really hard in the tight end room, in the running back room. They got hit hard on the defensive side of the ball, losing Devontae Wyatt, and they lost Micah Parsons. And there were stretches of time where they didn't have their corners healthy and they didn't have safeties healthy. So I think injuries were a really big piece of it. Now, I'm not putting that up as an excuse and saying that was the entire reason why the season wasn't successful last year. But my point number 2, the thing that's going to make or break their season in 2026, is how do you survive this period of time where you're going to have guys that are clearly recovering and are going to be coming back from injury, okay? The big notable ones, Tucker Kraft, Devontae Wyatt, Micah Parsons. Those are the 3 biggest names that are going to be coming back from injury. Now, the timeline on all of those players is a bit foggy right now. We don't have the whole picture, and we're going to know more as we get into training camp, and we're going to be able to see when are we going to get Tucker Kraft and Devontae Wyatt and Micah Parsons back. Right now, it looks like Tucker Kraft is pushing to play week 1. I don't necessarily know if that will be the case. Devontae Wyatt, have not really heard an injury update on. Micah Parsons is firmly saying he is, from the time of his injury, he has been very firm that mid to late October is the time frame at this point. But what you need to do if you're going to be successful in this beginning stretch of the 2026 season is you're going to need to find a way to weather that storm. You need to find a way without Micah Parsons, without Devontae Wyatt, to generate pressure on the quarterback. And you're going to need contributions from your guys that are already in the room, from your draft picks, okay? So guys like Lucas Van Ness, Baron Sorrell, Javon Hargrave, Javon Bullard, Edrin Cooper, Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney. You're going to need to get production from those guys on the defensive side of the ball. In the absence of Tucker Kraft, whenever he's coming back, Luke Musgrave needs to step up. I would love to see, Marshawn Lloyd, who has, been hampered by hamstring and soft tissue injuries his entire career. I would love to see him have a strong 2026 campaign, but that's kind of a fingers crossed situation. So you need your guys that are there, that you drafted, that you picked up in free agency to fill in these gaps until you get these major pieces back into your roster that you can plug them in and hopefully hopefully they pick up where they left off. But as we both know, coming back from injury, it is never a guarantee that you are going to be at the same level or get the same type of production that you had before that injury. Now, Adrian Peterson, for example, might be the one exception to that rule, where he came back after an ACL tear and frickin' went on an MVP campaign and nearly won a rushing title. He might be the one exception to that rule, but so I do have this cautious optimism, right? And kind of this moment where I say, okay, we have to pump the brakes because these players coming back from injury, Tucker Kraft, Devontae Wyatt, Micah Parsons, anybody that's going to be coming back from injury this year is not an instant fix for the Packers roster. It's going to certainly help, and I think it will make them more talented and they're going to be better off when these guys come back from injury. But it is not it's like the commercial. What's the adhesive that you just stick on any leak and it stops it? You know, the Billy Mays used to sell it, but I'm not going to remember. We'll put it in the comments when we remember, by the way. But that's my big number 2 thing that's going to make or break the season. How do you survive the injury, the period of time where you're going to have players coming back from injury? The other side of that coin is, can you this team, if they suffer injuries again, can they survive and find ways to win without key guys? Because that was another factor, that without Micah Parsons, the defense was not able to generate any pressure. And without Micah Parsons also, the other note is they lost every game after the Micah Parsons injury. Every single game. So that's number 2. Again, going to take a quick pause. Don't know if you have anything to add, Chris. Otherwise, I'm going to keep moving through because I know we got a lot to talk about, and we're both trying to cram a lot into our stuff today. So.
No, I think you put it perfectly. Like, injuries happen. Got to find a way to win without them. I mean, it's just part of the NFL. Part of any sport, really.
Yeah. I really, do you feel, and let me ask you this real quick, do you feel that the Packers used the injury excuse as a kind of, as a safety net last year? You know, when the injuries happened, right, and you had this kind of stretch of just really unfortunate injuries, and they started losing, and it became evident that they went from a could win the division to a wild card team. Do you think the Packers fans really started to use that as an excuse for the performance last year?
I think Packers fans and the Packers organization used that as an excuse. Look, injuries are going to happen. Again, injuries are going to happen whether we like it or not. Yep. It's just part of playing sports, especially highly physical ones. At the end of the day, you got to find a way to win with or without your key players. It surely helps to have those key players on the field.
Yeah.
It surely helps. I mean, it surely helps to have depth, which I would argue that was the Packers' biggest mistake last year in signing Micah Parsons.
Yeah, there was no depth behind him, really. They gave him a big contract and didn't really have anyone to back him up. Yeah. So this is why I say you need to get contributions out of other guys, and the other guys that they have on the roster that they signed, that they're paying, that they picked, that they drafted or picked up in free agency. Those guys need to prove it until those other guys come back, and hopefully they're better for it, and we can see an improved roster that gets to plug in a really scary good pass rusher when he comes back from injury. Hopefully 100% healthy and ready to go and itching to get after quarterbacks, right? So we'll see. We're going to monitor that, and we'll know more as we get into the regular season of the NFL here. You know. Okay, so number 3, and I think you're going to like this. We've talked about this. My third thing that I'm going to need to see is I need development from Jordan Love. I need him to take another step forward to really have this be a successful Packers season. Now, I'm not saying that Jordan Love has been unsuccessful in the previous years, because he's been a really solid quarterback. In his 3 years as a starter, 2023, 24, 25, he has been consistently in that kind of top 15, top 10-ish range. Now, the numbers are not gaudy MVP numbers, right? But they're solid starting quarterback numbers that you would expect from a franchise-leading quarterback, okay? Now, 2023 still remains Jordan Love's kind of breakout year, where he had 4,100 yards. He threw for 32 TDs. He had 11 interceptions, which is a little bit high, but that's okay. He still had a 96.1 passer rating and a completion percentage of nearly 65%. So that year continues. In that first year, we kind of came out of nowhere in this second half, and all of a sudden, Jordan Love, we, as Packers fans, had this feeling that we're like, we did it again. We got another Hall of Fame quarterback, which, pump the brakes. That's we're not there yet. Jordan Love, over the years, as I said, he's been consistent, a solid starter that I think there are 15, 20 teams that would love to have Jordan Love as their starter. 2025, last year, he was a solid quarterback, 3,300 yards, 23 touchdowns, lowered the number of interceptions, okay? So he had 6 interceptions, so finally down to a single-digit interception total, a 66% completion percentage, and a 101.2 passer rating. So from a statistical standpoint, the most efficient season is last year, but the kind of ups and downs of Jordan Love's career has showed a little bit because he's a young guy, right? What I want to see to really kind of improve this, right? Going into 2026, big thing, and you can probably attest to this and agree with me. Pocket movement. I need better pocket movement, better pocket decisions from Jordan Love. Okay, I think a big asset that Aaron Rodgers before Jordan Love had was that Aaron Rodgers had this really innate ability to know when pressure was coming, and he knew when to bail, he knew when to roll out, get rid of the ball, or just use his feet to pick up a first down. I don't think right now that Jordan Love has that ability fully developed. There are times back there, and we can both attest to this. We've seen it in games against the Vikings, the Bears, the Lions, other teams that have good pass rush. There are times where Jordan Love is back there and he looks scared, right? And he just runs into a sack, or he's backpedaling, looking for the big play, and, just eats a sack, or has a big negative play where you just, put your hands on your head and you go, what are you thinking? What are you doing in that moment? Or
throws a slant route too quickly and loses the Browns.
Yep, exactly. Or, it's just, or just boneheaded penalties, or it's young quarterback stuff, right? So I think I would love to see him develop that part of his game where he just kind of has that in-tune sense of what's going on in the pocket at all times and knows when to step up or when to roll out, when to just throw the ball out of bounds, when to, take the check down. I think that just that sense of what's going on in the game at any given time, like in terms of danger coming at him, is not fully developed, okay? The second thing that I want to see him do in 2026, make the smart throw, not the big throw, okay? And we talked about this with Caleb Williams in our last episode. There are times where the big play, the splash play is great, and if you can hit a 50-yard touchdown or you can get a big chunk play downfield, that's great. But I don't think that's always available, and I would love to see Jordan Love develop this ability to take the check down throw or just take what the defense is giving you. Because there are times where there's a degree of forcing it into traffic or forcing a throw that isn't necessarily there because he wants to get it to Christian Watson, or he wants to try and get it to Tucker Kraft, or whatever it might be. I have seen this tendency to kind of sit back there, kind of bounce on his toes and say, oh, I've got the big throw, and then, force something that isn't really there. So if he could develop that part of his game where he says, you know what, Tucker Kraft is a little bit open, but you know who's open coming across the field at 15 yards? Oh, Jaden Reed, boom, I'll throw it there, right? So I'd love to see that develop, to really have him be, a kind of, like I said, get into that discussion of top 10, top 5 quarterback. I think that's going to take a lot, but if you want to be contending for an MVP, if you want to be considered an elite level quarterback, this is one of the parts of your game that you have to get good at, just knowing where everybody is on the field and knowing when to take the smart throw versus the big throw, right? Finally, number 3, thing that I need to see improve from Jordan Love: protect the ball, protect yourself. Okay? So, what I mean by that, the protect the ball is obvious, okay? Don't force it into traffic. Don't try to make that big throw. Limit the interceptions. When we had Aaron Rodgers under center, the Packers fans were really spoiled because Aaron Rodgers was a turnover reverse quarterback. There was rarely a time that I recall where he had double-digit interceptions, and that has changed now with Jordan Love. There are some boneheaded interceptions, throwing across his body, doing the Brett Favre hero thing, and I'd like to eliminate that. I want to keep this supposedly high-powered offense on the field and sustain long drives, bleed clock, and, get Jordan Love to throw touchdowns and really have this be successful. So protect the ball. Keep it in your hands. Make the smart decisions. Now, the protect yourself piece of this, right, is me saying that Jordan Love needs to, at times, know when to bail out of it, know when he's in danger, okay? And I mentioned that before, right? That there's not this kind of understanding, it hasn't fully developed, this understanding of when the pass rush is coming at him, when it's coming at the interior, when it's coming off the edge. What he needs to do is avoid the injury, because there were 2 games last year that he missed because of concussions, and he got himself banged up trying to get an extra yard on a scramble because he put his shoulder down instead of sliding. Okay, so I would like to see Jordan Love get to be to that ability where if you get out of the pocket and you scramble, just dart out of bounds. Like, develop that ability. When you're running and you pick up a first down, slide. Just slide. You don't need to get your head, blown off by a linebacker that's trying to kill you. I don't need that. Our, $40 million a year quarterback does not need to be making decisions that give him concussions and make him miss playing time, because, as we both know, the best ability is availability in the NFL. And we need Jordan Love to run this offense, okay? So those are my kind of big things that I see with Jordan Love. Don't know if you have anything to add on the Jordan Love front. I know we've talked about it before, but that's what I've got on Jordan Love.
Yeah, nothing that hasn't been mentioned before. I think we'll move on.
Point number.
For the sake of time, to our fourth and final team, the Minnesota Vikings. The fan, many of us are born into, but not as cursed as Jets fans, apparently.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the first key, Vikings 4 keys to the season. The first key: can they keep the offensive line healthy this season? Mm-hmm. Last year they had a rotation of injuries on the O-line, with a lot of inconsistent play, allowing the QB to get sacked multiple times when they had multiple starters out.
Yep.
And they put on, also contradictory to that statement, they put on some of the best performances when they were all healthy, or a majority of them were healthy. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was ever 100% last year. I expect them to be focused on adding depth and evaluating each player's condition going into the 2026 and 2027 season. Just look at it. We saw last season with Christian Darrisaw versus Myles Garrett. Darrisaw was going against arguably one of the best, if not the best, edge rusher in the league, and we saw a brilliant performance from him. Same goes with their main starter, Brian O'Neill at right tackle. frees Jackson and Brandel in the interior offensive line, which I think Brandel will be the starting center, by the way. We'll get more into that once we get into training camp. And space to put up huge numbers in the running passing game. If they have the ability to put up numbers in the run and pass game if they can stay healthy, because they will provide the Vikings time and space, which are the two most important things, at least to start a big play on offense. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I mean, I think you said that perfectly. That, where the Vikings were most consistent last year was when they had a healthy offensive line. It was obvious. We saw it. We both watched the games where they struggled. If you can get that offensive line to be healthy, to be road graders and really win the battle up front in the trenches there, I think you're going to be a scary good offense. I mean, you were already good, right? Even with a patchwork offensive line, but you can keep them healthy. You can be really scary good and be a contender in the NFC side of things with an offensive line that can protect whoever the quarterback is going to be this year. So, yeah.
Definitely. Similarly, number 2, the run game, just simply put, needs to do better. It starts with my previous point of the O-line being healthy, and it continues with Mason, Jones, and Claiborne contributing to and making smart decisions to advance the ball down the field. I mean, if you look at it, not like we talked about last week with the Bears, not every run has to be a huge play. About 3 to 4 yards is fine. Heck, even get 2 yards on a first down play. Now, don't want it to be every first down play that you get 2 yards, but you get 2 yards on a first down play consistently, and you can get 2 to 4. Then I'm happy. One thing I would like to see the Vikings do is utilize the run game more and pass a little bit less, because they got a little bit pass happy last year. I got a bit too predictable in some cases. So their pass game was pretty good, all things considered, rotating through 3 or 4 different quarterbacks.
Right.
It's astounding to me that if I sit and watch any game of or let me put it this way, any team that had a Super Bowl winning season, or at least a deep run, they knew how to manage the clock with their run. They could manage the clock with the run game. I think the Vikings need to do that this year. And they also need to make smart decisions when running the football. How that looks is just going to be, sometimes it's, straight head-on runs versus all the tricky things that they tried to do last year. I would like to see that simplified. I don't have anything else on that. Do you have anything to add?
I liked what you said about run more, pass less, and I think that goes back to it harkens back to what they were designed as. At least this is what I would like it to be when they had Kirk Cousins under center. They had a phenomenal run game, right? You had Delvin Cook as your running back, and he was a great 3-down back, and you had change of pace and C.J. Ham, if I'm correct, and there was probably somebody else in there. But when they ran that system and they would use the run to set up the pass, and they had devastating play action pass to Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, then enter Jordan Addison, and there were other players, but I like that the idea that they might go a little bit back to that more of the play action pass where they've been so devastating in past years. So if they can get back to that, I think they'll be a really dangerous team in the NFC North as well as the rest of the NFC. So.
Yes, definitely. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, on to point number 3.
Okay.
We're going to switch it up before I get to the quarterback play. That will be the last point of the night. But point number 3 is the Vikings secondary needs to play just as well, if not even better than last year. And the big question on my mind, and I'm sure many others too, is will the Hitman return for one more year as a Viking? It seems that all answers are pointing to yes, as the veteran safety has not declared retirement. And this would give a huge boost to the Vikings secondary, along with Josh Metellus, who is very good in his own right, along with with the other linebackers who can drop back as well into coverage, as Brian Flores very much likes to do when he shows blitz. And I can imagine from the opposing side, it's pretty frustrating to watch. The Vikings defensive line this year also needs to get better by getting to the quarterback with some young talent leading the way in both Redmond and Turner, who had phenomenal seasons last year, along with their new draft pick, who plans to bank as many sacks as possible moving forward. And look, I think Caleb Banks was a good gamble for the Vikings organization. I honestly believe that he has the potential, and notice I said potential. I didn't say this was definitely going to happen. I'm not saying this is where he's at right now. He has the potential to be a top 5 standout with his size and his athletic ability if he can stay healthy. That being said, he also might take a little bit of time to develop coming back from injury. If that is the case, they have Dallas Turner, they have Jalen Redmond. I am pretty confident they'll also go after a veteran. So they need to beef up that defensive line. It needs to play better. How they do that is going to be a very, up to the organization, whether they choose to bring in guys from other places around the league or by free agency, or if they decide to do a trade. And I got some news for a lot of people who are hoping that this would happen, that J.J. McCarthy is probably not going anywhere. He's probably staying in Minnesota from what it looks like right now. Which, I don't know, before we move on, PJ, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I like that. I do have one question, though. So if Harrison Smith does not re-sign, they have a relatively young roster in the Vikings, yes? On defensive side? Okay. Because like on defensive side, I'm fairly certain they're pretty young. So I would just the only thing that I would say for the Vikings is I like what you're saying there about going out and getting a veteran, because I think the teams that have done so well in the past for the Vikings are those that have veteran presence in the locker room, whether that's on just the offense or just the defense. For the longest time, Kirk Cousins was that guy, right? Harrison Smith seems like he's in the 90th year of his NFL career, and I'm at this point where as an opposing fan, I would love him to retire. As a fan of football, I want him to come back. So I'm a little torn about that. But I think the teams that are so good, have been so good for the Vikings, feature veteran presence on either the offense or the defense. So I think it would do them a world of good to have a veteran in that locker room, really. So
Yeah, well, and like they do have it with their corners. I will say that they have guys like James Pierre and Dwight McLaughlin in there, and Byron Murphy, who is scary, scary good. Can
Yeah.
either sack you or pick you off.
Yeah, exactly.
And Josh Metellus is also pretty good. So
Yeah.
I just think that with Harrison Smith, the X factor there that you have with him is you kind of get two coaches a little bit. You can kind of have, but you know what? You can kind of have Flores be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to focus on the defensive line. Harrison, can you coach my secondary for me today?
Yeah, yeah.
And I am, yeah, I'm 100% sure the answer is, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, just because he knows the system inside and out.
Yeah. I mean, I very much see Harrison Smith, whether he retires this year or whether he retires in a year from now. Harrison Smith is a guy to me that will end up being a coach in the NFL at some level. He will be some sort of defensive, some sort of assistant or coordinator role on an NFL team in the future. I very much see that.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back to the Vikings in a coaching role, knowing his loyalty to the organization.
Yeah.
For the sake of time, we could probably talk about this all night, but
we could.
Gotta move on. Yeah. So the fourth point is the consistency in quarterback play from either J.J. McCarthy or Kyler Murray. You have possibly one of the best passing cores in the NFL. With the addition of Jennings to that slot receiver role, you also have Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson as your starters, along with TJ Hawkinson, who took a pay cut to stay with the Vikings. And you have Josh Oliver, too, who I suspect will be getting some more playing time this year. The thing is, if you can drive the ship and play above average, you will be successful.
Mm-hmm.
We're not asking for any miracles here, though sometimes those big plays need to happen to win the game. It just, again, it's part of sports. Sometimes you're down by so much, and a big play can definitely help that. But if I'm looking at this receiving core, you should be find someone open anywhere on the field, almost every play. So if the offensive line holds up, whether it's, again, McCarthy or Murray, you should be able to make a play to advance your team down the field and have decent clock management. I am all for those little slant routes. I'm all for those little box routes in, box routes out. It just depends on if you can execute at the end of the day. My concern with Murray over McCarthy, if Murray wins the starting job, is Murray's been known to try to make big plays when he does not have to make big plays. And I still think he's a solid quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he needs to play smart and not try to pad his stats, so to speak.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at McCarthy, I'm looking for development based off what he did last year. I do not think he was terrible last year. Now, I'm not going to say that he was an elite rookie quarterback, because that's not what he was. But I think he did enough to prove that he could start in the NFL at some point, whether it is this year or in a year or two's time. We need to see whoever they decide, which will probably be next week. At the time of this podcast, we do not know who is the starting quarterback yet. Whoever we decide to start just needs to play smart. Like, they just need to play smart. And then kind of drive the ship a little bit. Make sure that we're like, okay, I got Addison here. I got Jennings here. I have it off to Cook, Mason. Oh, there's a tight end running under. Easy pass. I'm fine with having a boring game if we can win those games with conviction. And what I mean is you're controlling the clock, you're keeping the defense off the field, you're having a decent mix of run and pass, and you're able to get consistent play with minimal turnovers. That's all I want from whoever gets the starting job this year. Now, for the speculation piece of it, it has come out recently that Murray might be having a little bit more trouble learning the system than JJ. So JJ very well could be the starter week 1. Now, whether that stays, we don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what it is looking like to me, at least right now. PJ, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I like what you say there. We're kind of on this same track here that we both brought up. This, quarterback development, quarterback play is going to be very important to the success of both the Packers as well as the Vikings. Now, the Vikings have kind of a big big off-season into training camp, into the preseason, kind of determining how this quarterback battle is going to go. Like Chris just said, it's early on, so there's not we don't really know anything other than like early on right now in like what are we in OTAs right now? Yeah, we're not even in training camp yet. So like right now. Before we hit any sort of kind of serious sort of stretch here, right now, Kyler Murray is struggling a bit more than J.J. McCarthy, and I think that to me makes a little bit of sense because J.J. McCarthy has a year or two of this underneath his belt. He's been able to study the playbook and has and a little bit of an established relationship with the wide receivers, with the tight ends, with the offensive line. So we'll see how it unfolds. But I think there's a ton to be excited about with the Vikings this season, this offseason, going into this season. So I really like I like what you say there.
I would say too. I would say Murray does have an advantage as well, where he is, got a little bit more of a touch on a lot of his throws. Mm-hmm. But McCarthy is just playing smart and knowing the offense, which is huge. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see who learns. We'll see who learns or competes better, I should say. Yeah. And we'll see who wins the quarterback battle that week 1. It'll be interesting to a lot of us to see who wins. I would be surprised if Murray doesn't become the starting quarterback at some point. But you know what? If McCarthy proves us wrong, then more power to him as well. Like, I don't think anybody would be mad about that.
No.
And with that, I will rescind my time.
The senator from Minnesota yields. Well, that's all we've got. This has been kind of, like I said, this has been a kind of short run of episodes that we did to kind of go over the Lions and the Bears, the Packers and the Vikings, and really kind of discuss. Oh. He's back. Oh no!
Yeah, sorry, it dropped. Like my sound cut out for some reason. So.
Oh yeah,
Go ahead. What were you saying?
No worries. So just what I was saying was that we wanted to do a small run of episodes here where we discussed from a standpoint of what's going to make or break their season. The Lions, the Bears, the Packers, the Vikings. We wanted to go through all of those teams. And just give just a little bit of a preview. We're obviously going to talk about these teams more as we get into, training camp and the preseason, into the regular season as well. So we're going to have a ton more content. I did want to make a note to everybody, if you haven't gone and listened to the episode where we talked about the Lions and the Bears, that is available on YouTube. We're also going to have this up on YouTube. So listen to both of the episodes so you can hear all of our content. As always, please engage with the content. Drop a comment down below. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to see. And as always, like, subscribe, give us a follow, and just stay tuned for more content updates. But this is going to be us signing off, at least for this episode, and we'll be back with more content, so stay tuned. I'm PJ here in Wisconsin.
I'm Chris in Minnesota.
And hey, thanks for listening, everybody.